Good evening, entrepreneurs. I see a lot of future billionaires in this room, or at least I hope so. But first, let me say something you probably didn't expect. I'm not here to talk about success today. I'm not here to talk about the glamorous life of being a billionaire or running one of the biggest companies in the world. No. I'm here to talk about something far less glamorous but way more important, listening. Yes, you heard me right, listening. I know it doesn't sound as exciting as be your own boss or take risks and conquer the world. But trust me, being a good listener is one of the most underrated skills in business and life. Now, before we dive into it, let me ask you a simple question. How many of you think you're great listeners? Raise your hand. I see some hands. You, in the back, raised your hand confidently. That's great. But you see, the funny thing about listening is that we often think we're good at it when we're actually terrible. It's kind of like karaoke. You think you're nailing that high note, but everyone else is cringing. So let's start by exploring why being a good listener is so essential and how it has played a pivotal role in my own journey with Alibaba. And trust me, I'll throw in some humor to keep you awake. After all, nobody likes a boring speech. Let me take you back to when I first started Alibaba. I had this crazy idea to build an e-commerce company in China at a time when nobody believed in the internet. People thought I was nuts. Even my friends said, "Jack, you're an English teacher, not a tech guy. What do you know about the internet?" Did I give up? No. But here's the thing, I didn't just talk about my idea. I listened. I listened to people smarter than me. I listened to my team, my customers, and even my critics. You see, when you're an entrepreneur, you're full of ideas. But ideas alone don't build companies. Execution does, and execution starts with listening. Think about it like this. If you're only talking, you're not learning. And if you're not learning, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, well, you might as well go back to your karaoke session because your business is probably out of tune. One of the first lessons I learned in business is that the customer is the real boss. You may think you're the CEO, but guess what? The customer holds all the power. The moment they stop buying, you're out of business. So, what's the best way to keep your customers happy? Listen to them. Back when we started Alibaba, I didn't just assume I knew what people wanted. I listened to their needs. And sometimes those needs were very different from what I had in mind. For example, I initially thought we'd only focus on big businesses. But I quickly realized that small and medium-sized enterprises needed our platform even more. By listening to them, we pivoted and became the giant we are today. But let me tell you, listening to customers is not always easy. Sometimes they're very honest, painfully honest. You might think your product is the next big thing and they'll tell you it's garbage. Ouch, right? But don't be offended. That's a gift. They're giving you free advice. Take it. It's like going on a date, right? Imagine you're talking about how great you are for the entire dinner. By the end of the night, you're wondering why they haven't texted you back. Well, that's because you didn't listen. Business is no different. As entrepreneurs, we like to think we know everything. I've been there too. When I started Alibaba, I thought I had all the answers. But you know what? I didn't. And I'm not ashamed to admit that. One of the smartest things I ever did was to surround myself with people who are smarter than me. I hired engineers, marketers, and data scientists who could do things I couldn't even begin to understand. And then, guess what? I listened to them. Imagine being in a meeting where everyone is looking at you to make a decision, but instead of acting like the smartest person in the room, you ask questions. You listen to their insights. Trust me, the respect you earn by doing that is 10 times more valuable than pretending to know it all. But here's the catch. Listening to your team is not about nodding your head and saying, while secretly daydreaming about your next vacation. It's about truly understanding what they're saying, processing it, and acting on it. Here's a funny story. Once one of my engineers told me, "Jack, we need to overhaul the entire system." Now my first instinct was to say, "Are you crazy? Do you know how much that will cost?" But instead I paused. I listened. I asked, "Why do we need to do that?" After hearing his explanation, I realized he was right. We made the change and it saved us millions in the long run. Lesson learned, trust the experts even when it's scary. Now here's a tough one. Listening to your competition. Oh, I know. You want to crush them, right? You want to be the biggest and the best. That's natural. But here's the thing. Your competition can teach you some of the most valuable lessons if you're willing to listen. When Alibaba was starting to gain traction, we had a lot of competitors, big names like eBay, who were already established in the global market. At first I thought, we'll just do our own thing and ignore them. But then I realized that by paying attention to what they were doing, both their successes and their mistakes, we could learn a lot. You don't have to like your competitors, but you do have to respect them. They're in the same battlefield as you, facing the same challenges. Sometimes their failures will show you what to avoid, and their successes will inspire you to do better. But, and this is important, don't just copy them. Listen, learn, and innovate. You don't want to be the Me Too company. You want to be the wow, I never thought of that company. And now we come to the hardest part of listening to yourself. It's easy to get caught up in the noise of the world, especially when you're an entrepreneur. You've got investors, employees, customers, and even your family telling you what to do. Everyone has an opinion, and sometimes it feels like you're drowning in advice. But here's the thing, no one knows you better than you know yourself. Deep down, you have a voice inside you that knows what's right for you. It's that gut feeling, that instinct that tells you whether to take a risk or play it safe. And the more you listen to that voice, the stronger it becomes. But let me warn you, listening to yourself is not always comfortable. Sometimes your gut will tell you to take a path that nobody else understands. I faced that when I decided to quit my job as an English teacher to start an internet company. People thought I was out of my mind, but I listened to myself, and here we are. Now, I'm not going to stand here and pretend that listening is easy. It's not. It takes practice, and it takes humility. As an entrepreneur, you're used to making decisions, taking charge, and being the leader. But listening requires you to step back, put your ego aside, and be open to learning. And let's be honest, we don't always like to hear what other people have to say, especially when it challenges our ideas. But that's exactly why it's so important. If all you ever hear are things you already agree with, how will you grow? Here's a funny example. Imagine you're getting dressed in the morning, and you think you look fantastic. You're about to walk out the door when your spouse says, "Are you really going to wear that?" Now, your first instinct is to defend your choice, right? But if you stop, listen, and maybe change your outfit, you'll probably end up looking a lot better. Business is the same. Sometimes the things we don't want to hear are the things we need to hear the most. I like to think of listening as a superpower. It's like having a sixth sense that allows you to tap into the collective wisdom of the people around you. And when you use that superpower, you make better decisions, build stronger relationships, and ultimately become a better leader. But here's the catch, like any superpower, it only works if you use it. So many people go through life thinking they're listening, but in reality, they're just waiting for their turn to talk. Don't be that person. Be the person who listens with intention, who absorbs what others are saying, and who takes action based on that knowledge. How to be a better listener. So how do you become a better listener? It's not rocket science, but it does require some effort. Here are a few tips that have helped me along the way. Be present. When you're listening, really listen. Put away your phone, stop thinking about your to-do list, and focus on the person in front of you. Ask questions. Don't just listen passively, engage with the conversation. Ask questions that show you're paying attention and that you're genuinely interested in what the other person has to say. Resist the urge to interrupt. This one's tough, especially when you're excited or have a lot on your mind. But interrupting someone is a surefire way to make them feel like you're not really listening. Practice empathy. Try to understand where the other person is coming from. Put yourself in their shoes and consider their perspective. Take notes. This might sound old-fashioned, but taking notes can be a great way to show that you're paying attention and that you value what the other person is saying. Follow up. After a conversation, follow up with the person to show that you were listening and that you're taking action based on what they said. Now you might be thinking, okay, Jack, I get it. Listening is important, but what's in it for me? Let me tell you, being a good listener can transform your life in ways you can't even imagine. Here are just a few of the benefits. Better relationships. Whether it's with your team, your customers, or your loved ones, listening builds trust and strengthens relationships. More opportunities. When you're a good listener, people are more likely to come to you with opportunities because they know you'll take the time to understand their needs. Improved decision making. Listening allows you to gather more information